climate change, and if they believed that climate change was real, they would usually ask me if I found the beat depressing. Weren't we all doomed? I'd tell them something about how climate change was vitally important because it represented the intersection of business and politics and science, all while allowing me to earn plenty of exotic stamps in my passport, which was true enough. Climate change was important, and I did feel lucky to cover it. I could read the studies, and I could write articles, so many articles, warning that our species was headed for doom if we didn't make radical changes in the way we lived. But I never really felt it. I didn't feel the future, its weight, its uncertainty, its importance, and like my newborn son, its fragility. But I would. In a 2012 poll by Reuters covering more than 20 countries, 15% of respondents predicted that the world would end in their lifetimes. A 2015 survey of Americans, British, Canadians, and Australians found that a majority rated the risk of our way of life ending within the next 100 years at 50% or greater, while a quarter believed humanity had a better than even chance of being wiped out altogether over that time frame. More Americans believed that life was better 50 years ago, when a nuclear holocaust was an everyday possibility, than it is today. In 2018, a UN scientific panel reported that the world had just 12 years to sharply reduce carbon emissions or risk a global catastrophe. Meanwhile, the tone of the news in the era of President Donald Trump has become nothing short of apocalyptic on both sides of the political divide. And when we're not reading about the real-life end of the world, we're watching a fictionalized version, The Walking Dead, The Hunger Games, Avengers Endgame, and half the new shows on Netflix. The bloodier and more dystopic it seems, the more we love it, as long as we're watching and not participating. If we fear the end times, part of us seems to crave them, and perhaps believes we deserve them. What's ironic is that this existential panic unfolds against the backdrop of a world that, for most of humanity, is better than it has ever been. In 2018, for the first time in history, more than half of the world's population qualified as middle class or rich. Infant mortality has fallen by more than half over the past 25 years. Even as weapons have grown far more lethal, the global death rate from conflict is less than it was 600 years ago. If numbers like that seem too dry, ask yourself this question. Would I have preferred to be born 50 years ago, not long after a global war killed more than 60 million people? 100 years ago, before the age of antibiotics, when a simple infection could end your life? 1,000 years ago, when human life expectancy was about 30 years? I doubt it. If we don't appreciate the present, it's in part because we don't fully understand the past, even as we make the mistake of assuming the future will be like the present. Psychologists have a name for this trait, the availability heuristic, the human tendency to be overly influenced by what feels most visible and salient in our experience. The availability heuristic can cause us to overreact, as when we hear about reports of a suicide bombing and become fixated on the danger from terrorists, ignoring the longer-term data that shows such incidents are on the decline. Risks that are available to the mind are the ones that we care about, which is why so much of our regulation is driven by crisis rather than by reason. As a longtime journalist, I plead guilty here. The standard definition of the news is the recent and the memorable, so the media plays a role in our overemphasis of the now at the expense of the historical perspective. No newspaper has ever led its front page with the story that 100,000 people rose out of extreme poverty yesterday. Yet for years, that is exactly what has been happening almost daily. The myopia of the availability heuristic leaves us fixated on everything that seems to be going wrong today, and blind to how far we've come. But that same psychological bias can also lead us to underreact to far greater dangers and threats that we've never experienced. The internet may remember everything, but human memory is short and spotty. Few of us have experienced in our own lives catastrophes truly worthy of the name, and no human has seen an asteroid on a collision course with our planet, or witnessed a disease rise and threaten our very existence. These threats have no availability to us, so we treat them as unreal, even if science and statistics tell us otherwise. Our failure to understand that the future could be radically different than the past is above all